Hello, good evening, everybody. Hi. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. It is just amazing to have you here tonight with us and in our live webinar. And just a warm welcome again to all of you who have just joined us. It is our privilege to have our three very distinguished speakers with us here tonight. So we're just gonna get everybody ready. And so let's start. More than 2 months ago, for Malaysia anyway, it seems like our world has suddenly ground to a halt, right? And we are forced into like a new norm where shops and companies and schools are declared closed. And I guess at that time, children, school-going children anyway, were very happy because it was like a holiday time. And then online learning commenced. And I guess they were still quite happy because they literally wake up 5 minutes before school starts and they're still can make it to class on time, right? I know my students do that. My 15-year-old daughter does that. So anyway, all this has been very unprecedented, and parents and education centers worldwide, I guess, have to learn on the go how to face this new norm that requires our children to stay at home all day, hopefully helping out with a lot of house chores if you're lucky, and hopefully they're not having their eyes glued to some screen, more than half the day. So in this rather uncertain environment, we may wonder what is to happen to the future of our lifestyle, of our children's education and their socialization. Well, certainly parents and children everywhere have quickly learned a lot of new things. For one, learning how to use Zoom and Google Meets and Google Classroom. So learning never stops, does it, for all of us? And that brings us to why we're here tonight. We are about to learn and discuss about what can we do about our children's development and learning in this new era. So our agenda, let's go to who do we have with us tonight. We have three very wonderful speakers. Mr. Chuah Jern Ern, who is an award-winning publisher, Dr. Gerard, who is an amazing educationist, and Dr. Vienne, who is an eye specialist. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker for tonight, Jern. So Jern is a publisher, one of the 5 founders of the children's book publisher called the 5A Alliance Limited, and creator of the Sunset Story universe. The Sunset Story children's books have won medals and awards for fiction and their beautiful art internationally and also in Malaysia. So without further ado, Jern, over to you.
Thank you, Pat. I hope everybody can hear me here. And I want to wish good evening to everyone. Can I just say what a real pleasure it is to be here. And I really like to say thank you very much to the Star and VISTA for inviting me to speak on this topic here tonight. Now, when we all started, they asked me first, can I give them a quote for this webinar's landing page? And I said, well, I'd like that quote to be, you are never alone with a book. And the response was, can you give us a more relevant quote, please? And I said, no, this is very relevant. And I think it's very important. Because when you have anybody that you see that's reading, sitting in a corner there reading, it looks like you're alone, but that's not true at all, right? When anyone is reading, you're actually on a journey with someone or with many people. And it's a journey in your mind. You are meeting people. You are engaging in a conversation with people. You are traveling to places. You are learning. You are feeling, So the truth is, you are never alone with a book. Now, today, I am not going to be talking about just reading for studying or reading for work, but reading for fun, right? And everything that I say today might be about reading for children, but it applies equally to adults as well. Now, it does not matter. It does not matter at all how old you are or how familiar or unfamiliar you are with reading, because you can always start today, right? You can always start today. Now, can reading for fun help children? And the answer to that is a very, very big yes. Reading for fun can help improve their education, can help their social development, can help them think better. It helps boost their imagination, and it helps improve their well-being as well as their mental health, right? But I do get this thing where people ask me, well, why a book? I mean, we have TV, we've got mobile devices, we've got movies, everything's a lot more exciting, isn't it? And then you see these explosions here, you see people traveling to many different worlds, you see all this, interesting things that people have created on a movie. Yes, that's true. But what you see is what people want you to see. You are a passive observer. You're just sitting there watching. Reading is different. Reading is an active partnership because your mind has to work. You have to take the words of an author and sometimes some unmoving pictures like what you're seeing on a page, and you need to apply your own imagination to playing out that special own movie in your own mind. Now, based on the same words that you read, we will all see different images. So from the one book, what I see may be slightly different from what you see. And because of that, we are all seeing different movies in our own minds from a book. And in fact, if you read a book when you were young, and then after that, you get older, you're an adult, you want to read the book again, sometimes you actually see a very different movie in your own mind from that book, which means that because your imagination has evolved, the story that you read evolves with it. And this is very important. Why? Why is this important? Well, it's because when you read a book, you are in the story. You are not just a passive observer, you actually are a part of it. When you're reading, it can lead to empathy. When you're experiencing the lives, the emotions, and the feelings of book characters. Now, this could be fiction, even or non-fiction, because even in a non-fiction book, say if you're reading about history or a war or whatever, you are following the feelings, the lives, the emotions of people within the book. It also leads to imagination because your mind now needs to see the people, the places, the scenery, the events, or the different times that you find yourself in when you are reading that book, when you're in that story. And it also leads you to a greater understanding because as a book can take us anywhere and everywhere, and it does in fact, this helps children and even adults understand that the world is a far bigger place than just what they know. It's not just their house, their compound, their city. It's not just mommy and daddy. It's not just their family or just their friends. The world is a very, very much bigger and a much more different place to what they know. And that helps them to understand that there are differences in the world, in life, and helps them see and accept these differences. So when you read a book and you're inside a story, all of a sudden your empathy grows, your imagination grows, and your ability to understand and determine your world and life view also grows. Now, reading also helps children pick up some new skills, right? It helps them with language skills. As you read, you start to learn new words. When you start to acquire new words, that improves your vocabulary. And by exposing children to a range of new words and phrases that they may not have heard, they may not use at home, may even be a different language, it helps them communicate better because now they have got more words to use in discussing and talking with people, right? It also helps both children and adults develop concentration. Regular and consistent reading can help a child learn to sit still and concentrate for a long period of time, which also benefits them in their schooling and also benefits them to, hashtag duduk diam-diam di rumah, which we have been seeing all the time over the past 2 to 3 months, right? And, if you can sit at home and just read, then definitely you duduk diam-diam di rumah, right? And that's a big plus. Now, so if you want to put it all together, and I could go on for this for a very, very long time, but I only have this short 10 minutes with you, which I'm very grateful for. So I do want to sum up for you why reading, even reading for fun, is important for children. First, reading grows their vocabulary so that they can communicate better, right? They also gain a deeper understanding of the world that they are in, and they can then develop empathy and mental strength. Their social skills and interaction ability also improves, and their imagination can grow. Once their imagination can grow, their ability to create, their ability to innovate, their ability to do things differently develops, and their concentration levels and skills also improve. When you put all of these different skills together, you tend to find then people who read are able to also do better academically, and that can also translate to improving their life, right? So in conclusion, I think what I want to say is that for many reasons, reading is very, very important, right? Now, when you talk about reading, there's twofold. Number one, it can be a child reading by themselves. But if you have young children, also spend the time picking up a book and reading to them, because that can also help them start up developing those skills to learn that it is fine to sit down there to read a book, to follow how a book is being read, and to follow also how they can link with their parents or an elder. It could be a grandfather, grandmother, even uncle or auntie sitting in a home reading to the child to get them used to the habit of reading, right? So like I said, in conclusion, what I want to sum up basically is reading is important. Now, I also want to add that if you've enjoyed any of the pictures that have accompanied this presentation, these can be found in the book that the Star and VISTA are so kindly donating to the 200 first registrants, right? I'll just do a short plug that if you like animals and adventure, then you're going to love this book and the series. It is organized in short chapters, so it's easy to read out to younger children as well. Yep. So in short, I think we've got time to take questions in Q&A, but I will just want to say thank you all very much for listening to me here today. I want to thank the Star and VISTA again for this opportunity, for inviting me to share my thoughts here today. And my very best wishes to all of you. Please stay safe, be careful, and remember, you are never truly alone with a book. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jern. I totally agree with that. I can get lost and immersed in a different world when I have a good book in my hands. And I absolutely love reading to my kids as well. I think it creates that nice bond with them, and they're very, very young. So anyway, I'm really looking forward to our next speaker, Dr. Gerard Lewis, who is the CEO of Help International School. So let me give you a little brief background of Dr. Gerard. He was the founding principal of the Help International School when it was first started, and now sits on the board of governors, and he's been involved in the field of education for over 25 years now. And he also serves as the Dean of the Faculty of Education at the Help University. And during his 12 years at the university, he has lectured in courses in counseling and psychology, and was also the director of Career Sense at the Help University, which is a career guidance and counseling unit. So, okay, Dr. Gerard, over to you.
Thank you so much, Pat. Certainly a pleasure for me also to be here. Thank you, VISTA, and thank you to STAR for giving us the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with the audience that's here tonight. Thank you, parents and members of the audience. I know some of you have children who are already past the bedtime, and thank you for staying up. For some of us, it's also past our bedtime. So thank you for being around. You know, being a teacher, one of the things is that we have a lot to say, and I only have 10 minutes. So let me just go straight into this. Yeah, I was asked to say something about online education, and how does that impact on our the changes that are happening in the 21st century, and why is that important for us? Yeah, interesting that I was even asked to talk about that, and I think the last 3 months have everyone now, this is a buzzword. They talk about online education as a new normal. If some of the bits of news that is coming out from the Ministry of Education, there's even a possibility that what we started 3 months ago will extend right until the end of the year for universities. Yeah, so there are a lot of statements that are coming out, nothing official yet. But when you think about it, online education actually has been around for quite a while, 35 years or so. When you look at the history of online education, 1980s, in the mid 1980s, they started the first distance learning programs. Then over in the early 2000s, about 20 years ago, we already had universities offering distance learning, online learning, etc., as an alternative to face-to-face, full-time on-site learning. Yeah, so it's been around for so long. But it's interesting that after 20 years, 35 years, we realized when the pandemic hit us, everybody had to scramble finally to get on to this mode of learning. Yeah, and you would think that after because technology has been around for a very, very long time, but for many of us, the schools that we have all over the world, and it's just not only here in Malaysia, what we realized is that there were huge gaps in ability to deliver online learning. For us in the school, we were more or less predicting that this was going to happen because we were looking at what was happening in China, in Korea, etc. And we had maybe about a week or so head start. We already started doing some work. And because we're an Apple Distinguished School here, we've got a one-to-one Apple program, iPad program. We are quite fortunate. We're one of the fortunate few where we don't have to worry about devices and so forth. Yeah, but there are a whole lot of others, and not just here again in Malaysia, across the world, even in the United States, even in Australia, where my kids are. You see these huge gaps in the ability to deliver online learning. Yeah, and you will see on the screen more than quite a few. Let me just this is blocking my view. Let me just 37%. So when MOE did this survey of almost 900,000 students in Malaysia, 37% didn't have an access to an appropriate device. What does that actually mean? So for the last almost 3 months, many students really haven't had any schooling or any learning at all because either they didn't have the appropriate devices or they didn't even own a device. Yeah, much less even have the access, even if they had any access, because the infrastructure, the Wi-Fi infrastructure, the technology available is inconsistent throughout the country. So, I heard someone on CNN recently talk about this, and the analogy he gave was, how it is when we try to raise our children. And often we tell them, especially our teenage children, don't do this, be careful when you do that, and our children say, yeah, I know. And all your greatest fears one day will come about and they say, Papa, you are right. I should have listened to you. Well, I think what the pandemic is telling us now is, are we ready to listen? Are we ready to listen? on the importance of and the need to really embrace technology in a way that we haven't done before. Because we're very mindful of the downsides, of course, too much exposure to technology, etc. So that argument, those debates have been there forever. Yeah. But in this new reality that we are in, we cannot run away. Otherwise, we will have this situation when the next pandemic hits us, and when if a vaccine is not found soon enough, what is learning? How are we going to cope? How are we going to manage what will happen to our children in the future? And what did we do?
Dr. Gerard, are you having some technical issues? Oh dear. Let's just wait for a short while for him to sort things out. But I totally agree, right? There's a lot of downsides as well as positive side to online using technology for learning. Oh, Dr. Gerard, you're back with us. Okay.
Sorry, I don't know whether you heard the last bit.
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay. Where did I stop?
While technology has downsides to it, we learn to embrace this.
Yeah. So I thought this next session, okay, let me just share screen again. Apparently, when that went off, I stopped sharing screen. Hold on a while. Let me get my technology support. Okay, share screen again. Yeah, here you go. Okay, the wonders of technology, isn't it? Okay. So let me quickly talk very quickly about what online education is all about, because I've gotten letters from parents in the different schools that we manage, talking about the concerns. Yeah, my children are not getting enough. One parent even said, I pay so much money for my child to have, for the teachers to stand in front of a class for 50 minutes to teach. But your teacher I noticed, only spends 10 minutes on online education. And therefore, all the complaints that follow because only 10 minutes. Yeah? And so there seems to be a misunderstanding or misconception about what online learning is all about, online education is all about, and what that process and structure of education. I thought, I spend a little bit of time, maybe not too much, but just a little bit, just to give people an overview of what really goes on in the mind of a teacher when he structures a lesson. Yeah. And so if you notice, there's so many different models that are out there. And when you look at this particular model, it's called the multimodal model for online learning. There are 7 different components. What you have in terms of a structure of a lesson is in the bold, in capital letters, and what you have below that are just the devices, the infrastructure, the apps that you will actually need, the technology to support the delivery of those different parts and components of online learning. Yeah, and so so when a teacher organizes, there is always what we call content. Yeah, so there's content delivery. What is it I want to teach today? What is it I want my students to learn? What is it that they must take away from me? What are the core learning outcomes that they must take away with them after this time with me online? Okay, and then how am I going to then deliver what I want to do? So it can be face to face. It can be through a little video clip that I want to introduce, etc. And then after that, I will set up some assignments for my students to then discover this a little bit more. What is it I want them to learn? Yeah, and there will be different kinds of activities that I will do, and I will not be talking all the time. I will just stop for a while, get them to do a bit of independent learning, maybe for 15-20 minutes. Yeah, depending again on the age levels. There will be some discussions that they will be talking among themselves. We have discussion boards. We have small little rooms where they can go to. Then after that, I want to be able to assess when they come back whether the learning actually has happened, right? So in every lesson, there will be some assessment. And there will be, so whether the assessment is an individual assessment, a little quiz that I might have, immediately I submit, the student is supposed to submit the quiz after that bit of independent learning. And what's beautiful and really good about online learning is the instant feedback to the teacher. And learning is all about feedback, isn't it? How do I know whether you have learned until you have given feedback to me about what is it that you have learned? And from the feedback you have given to me, I will then know whether you are aligned to what is it that I had wanted you to learn in the first place. And I will then immediately also be able to give you feedback from then the perspective of the teacher, right? And then the student goes away with some reflection. Okay, what did I learn today? Some whether it's to a blog, to a little journal that I write, and the process repeats. Yeah. So every lesson there is a structure that's involved. It's not just a student being present in front of a screen for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, and just listening to someone drone away. Yeah. And most times students will just otherwise just switch off the screen and fall asleep. You won't even know if I'm paying attention or not. That sometimes often, in fact, happens when you're doing all these webinars or meetings even with the department, and I don't know whether people are actually even listening to what we are saying. Yeah, but if a teacher knows how to engage the class, and typically that's what good online learning should be about. You must be able to interact, you must be able to engage your learners, and then you must be able to get them to feedback to you. That is the essence of what online education is all about. And when you think about it, how different really is it? What, from face-to-face on-site learning. Yeah. So yes, online learning is not everything for sure. It doesn't replace the richness of face-to-face physical interaction, contact, etc. But there certainly are a lot of benefits to this. And that's something that I think we have to recognize, because given the kind of situations we find ourselves in, where if we go back face to face, there are tremendous risks that are involved, and sometimes those risks can lead to severe consequences. Yeah. Therefore, one of the things I often share with parents and with like-minded people is, when you think about online learning, think about a child being on technology, not just because it's consuming technology. Then I'm very passive. Yeah. So if I'm just using technology to just consume, and then you have all the worry about how much it impacts on my eyesight, how much it impacts on my addictions, etc. Do I have what we call in psychology problematic smartphone use, addiction to our smartphones, etc. But if I look at technology as a partner in my learning, then I can use that as a tool for me to then develop, create content, not just consume content. So online learning allows this to actually happen. And teachers who are innovative, teachers who are constantly challenged, how do I make the learning interesting? How do I make the learning engaging? They have to find the key to this. And those that are able to do that will be able to then help develop independent, resilient learners. They will help to develop learners who are creative, who are critical, who are analytical, who are able to solve problems. And all of those are what we call fourth industrial revolution competency and skills needed for us for the future workplace. Yeah, so think about 11, 15, 16 years by the time a child finishes his time in school. If he spends all of that time that he has, whether it's online or on-site, but every day in this process of learning, yeah, using the tools and devices and technology available to him to develop this, he will be very, very ready for the future world that we are talking about. Yeah. One of my favorite little pictures that was sent to me recently by someone. This is not what online learning is about. This is not what learning. If somebody has to stand behind a child with a rotan in hand, study, yeah, that takes away everything. Yeah, that takes away everything of what we as teachers try to do, to make learning fun, to make learning interesting, to make learning exciting, to make learning, develop curious minds, etc. This will not do that. And the moment the grandmother goes away, the boy will go somewhere else on his computer. Yeah, You can be sure of that. So when we talk about education also, yeah, whether it's online education or not, we must always talk about education in the context of, yeah. So when we think about post-COVID-19, what's going to happen to the economy? What's going to happen to the way we relate to one another? What's going to happen to the way we work? What's going to happen to the way we travel? And this is not an exhaustive list. Every day when you turn on the news, you will talk about different people. There are hundreds of webinars always through the last 3 months engaging us in this. And constantly we realize if we are not able to get off our homes, but life has to continue, how do we continue? What will the future workplace be like now? And if we, so all the developments, all the changes that are happening now to enable us to continue working, running our business, relating with one another, etc., all of those supports that we have in technology, yeah, will still be there post-COVID-19, because now this will be the new workplace. And therefore, if this is already happening, and it has been happening for the last 10, 15 years in what they call the fourth IR, then what would be the expectations of employers in the future of the people they hire? Because by then, technology in the next 15 years, in the next 3 years, technology would have already gone up at an even faster pace and rate than it has over the last 15 years. Because the need to survive, to manage our businesses, to bounce back from this pandemic is so critical, because many people, millions of people have already lost their lives. And if the economy doesn't come back, we are in serious trouble. So people are already innovating all over the world with technology to make sure that they are able to come back as quickly as possible. And so when we talk about the post-COVID-19 situation, the world will be very different. We will not be going back to the world that was before. And so with that, if I'm an employer, now I'm going to be looking for a different skill set. I'm going to be looking for a different kind of employer, right? And equally important for us as educators and for us as parents, yeah, we've got to ask ourselves, the educational experience that my children are going through now, will it prepare them for the future of work by the time they finish school? Those are important, critical questions for us to ask, yeah? I came across this, when I was surfing through the net, trying to look for a picture to capture, some of these thoughts that I had in my head. And I like this very much. Why do I like this? See where this class is. Yeah, so they're not really online as we understand it. But this class is in a library of thousands of books. So think books, think knowledge, think content. Of course, Jern certainly talked about an important aspect of books, which is, to help us read, to empathize, etc., develop vocabulary and so forth, without taking any of that away. Learning is happening in a receptacle of knowledge. But the focus is not just about learning content. The focus is about everything else that is involved in the process of learning. And therefore, I think more than anything else, we just need to remind ourselves constantly, content information becomes outdated very, very quickly. And if we don't learn how to learn, rather than what we learn, instead of what we learn, we need to know how we learn, how to learn. If we don't know how to learn, when the situation changes, we find that the knowledge that we have will be obsolete. And if we don't have the means to know how to update ourselves and very quickly adapt to the new realities, we will find ourselves lagging further and further behind in the world. Yeah. And finally, I just want to give a shout out to the importance of parenting support for online learning. And I know, as I mentioned, because of all the concerns that parents have in relation to learning, in relation to the use of technology, pardon me, yeah. And that's why the idea of too much screen time, the concerns about that, etc. It is important that, especially with young children, parents often ask the question, it's so difficult. I have work and I have to support them, etc. During their lessons, especially for very young children. So how do we do that? All I can say is that support in these last 3 months, if you have been supporting your child, consider it a privilege. That's what parenting is all about. because there will come a time in our lives when our children will not want us to be there. And when you want them to be there, they say, Papa, Mommy, I don't need you to be there. Please let me live my own life. I've got things to do. But now when they need us and we have the opportunity to be with them, these are very precious moments. And if it means having to sit with them to help them learn, that support is going to be critical in setting the foundations and the base for their exploration of the world that is in front of them. Yeah, and so many things that parents can do, and among other things, among the many things, one thing that we find very useful and very helpful in working with young children is to engage them after the lessons with questions, right? Not so much what did you learn, but questions like, can you tell me, explain to me what you are working on? Help me understand what is it that you did today. Yeah. What was most confusing about what you learned today? What questions did the lessons create for you today? You really did very well to support that. So what are the next steps? Constantly developing this sense of inquisitiveness, this intellectual curiosity by asking those questions. Part of that Socratic approach to learning, asking those questions, stimulates the child to continue exploring, problem solving, looking at different ways of understanding something. And if I can explain to you what I did, then I know the learning is deep. Yeah. Focus also on technology, not so much as a necessary evil I just have to bear with, but look at it as a means, as I said earlier, to help my child develop the sort of competencies necessary for the fourth industrial revolution, fifth industrial revolution. Yeah. Today, I was, those two sites that are there, one is a wonderful site from Stanford University. You know, they linked, I was reading it today, and they linked to a site where kids can create all sorts of interesting things. Yeah. And this afternoon, today, one of my colleagues, the Dean of the Faculty of Digital Learning, gave us a webinar. I think it was oversubscribed. We had about 500-600 people who signed up for this webinar. And in half an hour, you know, she showed us how to develop an animated video. Fantastic, right? And there's so many tools that are out there that help us then learn how to create and produce knowledge. Then that's basically the basis and the foundation to the future of learning and the future of work. The ability to be creative, as I mentioned, to be innovative, to be able to solve problems, be able to develop creativity and critical thinking and analytical thinking. Yeah. So thank you so much again for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gerard. Yes, that was really true. Actually, one of the things is, as parents, we are absolutely empowered and should have this responsibility of mentoring our children and being there for them, especially now. And one thing I learned about I love about this online education and online learning nowadays, I don't have to be stuck in traffic jams. So ferrying them to and from school. Okay, I digress. And last but not least, we have our wonderful Dr. Vienne Tai with us as our final speaker for tonight. And I'd like to give you a little background of Dr. Tai. So Dr. Vienne Tai is the consultant ophthalmology and also the cataract and refractive surgeon at the VISTA Eye Specialist Center. She is always passionate to help the needy. And Dr. Tai has traveled to Nepal, Indonesia, Thailand, amongst other countries on her free time for volunteer work to help the underprivileged people there. So it would be, and I'm very, very privileged to have Dr. Tai with us tonight. So over to you, Dr. Tai.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great honor to be here. Wow, so from the previous two speakers, we have heard reading is important for children development, and children are moving to online classes now. This also means more time spent on digital devices. And I am here to tell you the impact of prolonged screen time on children. I'm not going to say we must stop digital devices, but I'm just going to share how we can protect children's eyes when the world is shifting towards online learning. Children using the digital, children using the digital devices is a sight that you often see today. A child holding a tablet or a child's eyes on his smartphone while eating. At one point, parents have a great relief as these digital devices are a good way to pacify their children, as well as an entertaining and also the education tool. However, there is an increasing world concern about potential harm of prolonged screen time. Parents are worried whether their children may have eye problems such as dry eyes, digital eye strain like adults. Unfortunately, children are more susceptible to the harmful impact of prolonged screen time compared to adults. The harmful impact may not only confine to the eyes, but is more on the what you think. It can have the bad impact on the behavioral and also the physical development among bad impact among the children. So, according to this Suprit, he reported that 2 hours or more long hours of screen time per day resulted in the Canadian children being 7 times more likely to meet the criteria for attention deficit or hyperactive disorder. Mahe conducted a study with 2,200 Australian children, which aged about 9 to 16 years old, found that an increase of likelihood of the child being overweight or obese was often associated with longer screen time. In more specific, prolonged screen time may cause headache, especially in the patients with uncorrected or overcorrection of refractive power. Neck and shoulder pain may also occur when the children have an unhealthy posture, but usually children do not complain as they usually ignore that problem. Of course, prolonged screen time can lead to the reduced attention span, poor behavioral, irritability, hyperactive, and also poor sleep among children. I, as a parent, will be more worried the impact of the psychological changes among my son, in my kids, especially I'm afraid that they will affect their learning ability. Okay. The most severe eye impact of the prolonged screen time among children will be short-sightedness. Once your children develop short-sightedness, then you will never be able to reverse that. Some of my parents, means my patients' parents, still hope that by wearing the glasses or putting the atropine eye drop, the power can reduce, but sorry to say, it will not. So other ocular impacts such as eye strain, dry eye, or irritated eyes also still can't recover once you stop or reduce the exposure to the digital eye straining. Okay. Here are some unique aspects of how children use computers may make them more susceptible compared to the adult to get the eye problems. Okay. The first one, the limited degree of self-awareness of children. Most of them keep performing an enjoyable task like playing video games. So with a great concentration for many hours until they are exhausted. Prolonged activity without a significant break can cause the accommodative problems and eye irritation. When staring at the electronic devices also, people tend to blink less, and this results in the poor tear distribution and also the dry eye. The second will be the adaptability of the children. Children have great adaptability and frequent ignore problems. A child who is viewing a computer screen with a large amount of glare often will not think about changing the computer arrangement or the surrounding to achieve more comfortable viewing. This can result in excessive eye strain. Excessive eye strain may lead to the short-sightedness. Besides that, children often accept blur vision caused by a refractive error because they think everyone sees the way they usually see. Okay. The third one will be the use and adult computer. Since most computer workshops, workstation are arranged for the adult usage, so the computers do not fit them well. Therefore, a child using a computer on a typical office desk often need to look up, and this can cause the straining of the eyes. In addition, children may having difficulties reaching the keyboards and their face is having also the difficulty of placing their feet on the floor, or causing the arm, neck, and also the back discomfort. The last one will be the non-optimum lighting. So mean the lighting level for the proper use of the computer is about half as bright as that normally found in our classroom. So increased light levels can contribute to excessive glare and the problems associated with adjustment of the eyes to different levels of light. So above mentioned are the reasons why children are more susceptible than adults to develop eye problems. Since children's eyes are growing eye, excessive eye strain, especially prolonged screen time, actually, or even extended reading can lead to the short-sightedness. Why do I need to emphasize on the short-sightedness? Because once patient develops short-sightedness, the impact is irreversible, and patient carries the potential risk of the vision loss depend on how high is their power in future. They have the potential risk of vision loss in future depending on how high is the power. So prevalence of short-sightedness actually has grown significantly in the last decades. The graph showed short-sightedness actually, the prevalence has been increased steadily for the past few decades, especially in the Southeast Asian country. And especially in the China, we can see that this myopia boom means they noticed that among the almost 100% of the youngsters in the China, especially in the Shanghai, they need to wear glasses. Means the prevalence of the myopia is about 95.5% in the Shanghai University. So it's quite sad to see that. Means all of the youngsters need to wear glasses for the short-sightedness. Of course, genetic will play an important role in the getting short-sightedness, but environmental factors like extended near work, either prolonged hours on screen or long hours of reading without break, increase the chances to develop short-sightedness. Conditions become worse since our lifestyle is more confined to a house without much outdoor activities, because the constant straining of the eyes may stimulate the eyeballs to grow extra longer. So when the light comes into the eyes, the light will focus in front of the retina instead of on the retina, and this will give rise to the short-sightedness. And the greater the degree of short-sightedness, the greater the risk of the complications such as the glaucoma, cataract, retinal detachment, or these macular degeneration. So the risk will especially be higher when the power is more than 600 diopter. So what should we do? Okay, early eye screening, especially even at the age of 4 years old, is recommended. If you think that your children have the higher chances to get the short-sightedness. This is important to make sure that our children have good eyesight for learning and to make sure that there is no issue of lazy eye. Lazy eye may have permanent visual impairment if we miss the golden periods to reverse lazy eye. We noticed recently at the end of the MCO, parents tend to bring their children to spectacles shops due to the increase of the eye power. But it may not be a true increment of the power because this is a condition where we call it a pseudo myopia or accommodation problem. When focused at the near, our ciliary muscle will tense up. So if we focus for a long hours, this ciliary muscle tend to become tense up, become spasm. And this spasm of the muscle gives rise to the falsely high power, or we call as pseudo myopia. So to diagnose this condition is very simple. Just put the eye drop to dilate the eye, means to relax the muscle, and we can get the true power. So I had a patient who is about 10 years old. He was brought by his aunties because his auntie noticed he had the problem of the seeing things, problem with the vision. And the aunties told me that he has this child always engaged with the devices about many hours per day. So when I examined this patient, I noticed he had the power about short-sightedness power about 800. But when we put the eye drop to dilate the eye, we noticed actually he had no power at all. And why so? It's because he always looking at the near and his muscle is over spasm. So the remedies for him is, I told him, it's nothing I can do. You need to change. No glasses that I can provide for you, and you need to reduce your screen time. Okay. So what else can we do to protect our children's eyes? According to the US Department of Health, actually they recommended children who is under 2 years old shouldn't be exposed to any screen time. And for the children more than 2 years old, if let's say we expose them with the screen, should not more than 2 hours per day. But it's very sad to say, young children also, they tend to engage themselves to the screen time more than 7 hours per day. So the next one, we try to set a good model in front of our kids. If we limit our children to an hour of screen time in evening, try to adhere to the same guideline. I find this is a very good way to reduce screen time for children, especially when I look at my smartphone at home. I noticed that my son also automatically, he will come to me and say, Mommy, I also want to look at what you see. Okay, so try to set a good model in front of our kids. Turn off all devices at least 1 hour before children go to bed, because blue light from devices may interfere with their sleep. Have a designated place where you charge all your devices at night. There is a great way to avoid. This is a good way to avoid temptation. Or change your password regularly, and your children have no chance to use the digital devices by themselves. Remember 20-20-20 rules. So after every 20 minutes, try to take a 20-second break and look at the object at 20 feet away to relax our eyes. Okay. Try to ask the children to blink more, because remind our kids that blinking is important, because this can keep the eyes moist. And teach our children to have a good positioning. I mean the importance of the positioning. Try to create a sufficient distance between the screen and the eyes. Keep the handheld devices a good distance from the eyes, about 1 arm length, and put the computer screen about 50 degrees below our eye levels. Adjust the brightness of screens. Change the background color to cool gray, and consider adding a blue light filter to smartphone and tablet. Increase the text size of screens. If you cannot avoid letting your children look at the digital devices, it is better to give a larger screen compared to a smaller screen like a smartphone. Try not to use more screen time as a reward. Keep within your agreed upon your family limit. Don't say to your children that if you behave, mommy or daddy will reward you with more cartoons or more computer games times. Teaching our kids about moderation is an important life skill, so feel confident in setting the healthy boundaries. Okay, last but not least, more outdoor activities are important remedies to treat device dependency or addiction among children. I always told my patients' parents to bring their children out for more outdoor activities like cycling, playing at the playground. When they enjoy the outdoor activities, definitely they forget about computer games or cartoons, and they won't ask the devices from you anymore. During the outdoor activities, sunlight can stimulate dopamine and reduce the progressions of short-sightedness. And outdoor activities also not only can guarantee normal motor skills development, but also healthy eye, physical, and also behavioral development. Take-home message. Prevention is better than cure. Limit screen time before it left permanent bad impact in your children's eye, health, and personal development. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vienne. That was really, really insightful of what we need to do. And I must agree, I'm guilty. Like I said, okay, that's it, 5 more minutes, and then I'm still on my little device. So yes, what we say to our children, we have to do it ourselves as well. Okay, so we're just going to gather some of the questions from all of you who are tuning in. And so before that, maybe we'll just have a little chat amongst the speakers. Jern, do you think, you know what Dr. Tai was saying, that you need to take a break every now and then, but when you're immersed in a story and you're lost, it's really hard. How you know, in that situation, how do you take a break when you're lost in a book?
Yeah, I think that is hard. It is, because time is relative, you know, in a sense. If you're really bored, right, one minute feels like an hour. When you're doing something interesting and exciting and you're immersed in a book, you look down, you look up, it's 3 hours later, you know, day has turned to night. That can actually happen. I think at the end, what is to me very important is that you do need to be mindful of your surroundings and sometimes what you do. And if you want to moderate your time and you want to set, I suppose for children, sometimes, you know, it's good to have parents around that says and are keeping an eye on time, or people are setting alarms, or, you know, sometimes it's just a very natural, okay, I'm going to allow myself this amount of time now. That is a measure of discipline, a little difficult, I know, at the very, very start, but I suppose we all have to start somewhere. I mean, I myself am guilty of, you know, looking down, looking up, and it's 3 or 4 hours later. You know, but sometimes you just have to really set yourself a goal to be disciplined about these things.
Yes, I guess I'm just seeing some questions coming in, and some people are like, how in the first place do I get my kid to read? Gosh, Dr. Gerard, we heard what Dr. Vienne was saying about, you know, you need to blink more and you need to be careful about your 20-20-20 rule. And so would you actually inform your teachers or share with your teachers about this, to be mindful?
Yeah, I mean, certainly anything in excess, anything in excess, too much of a good thing, they say, is a bad thing. A very wise teacher of mine, you know, many years ago, when I was a boy of 15 or 17, I forget, and we were celebrating his 50 years as an educator. At his anniversary, he said, the one thing I learned early on in life, the golden mile, the golden mile. The golden mean, not the golden mile, the golden mean. Everything in moderation. Everything in moderation. Anything in excess will always be bad. Whether it's screen time, whether it's reading we get so absorbed that we lose all sense of time, that we, you know, don't have our meals regularly. It will impact on our health, not just our eyes, right? So anything, too much exercise is also bad. So too little exercise is no good, right? So everything in moderation. And I think as parents, when we are raising very young children who still, judgment is not there, then we have to set the boundaries. We have to guide them. We have to show examples ourselves. We have to be able to model what using our devices is all about. We have to show, you know, how we respond to people with our devices. Sometimes, you know, we get some very, very nasty text messages and then nasty emails, etc., from parents, and you wonder, how is this possible? You know, we want our children to teach respect, to be all of those things, but we ourselves don't provide the modeling that children require to learn. Yes. And therefore, I think a lot of it, you know, begins with us, isn't it?
That's true. Yeah, both, I guess, parents and teachers have the responsibility to be good models and to be good mentors as well. So, Dr. Vienne, do you agree with Dr. Gerard when he was saying that, it was Jen who said that, you know, reading is so important. Would you say there's any difference between, say, an online device or a physical book for very, very young children? Would a physical book be better?
Actually, I totally agree with what Mr. Jern said. Actually, we need to learn. So in the early engagement or early introduction of the book is okay. But you give me the choices, I will introduce the books first to my children at a very young age. let's say less than 2 years old, I will let them read the book. There is no problem. But provided the text of the reading, the letter must be big, in a big font, so they won't strain their eye too much. So means this will be okay. If you ask me the screen time, from what the expertise say, less than 2 years old, we shouldn't expose them to any screen devices. So I will like what Mr. Jern said. Yes, I agree. Children need to learn, and they need to have a book from the very young age. And my observation is from my patient, I have a two group of patient. One group is they really engage in reading books. That's why their power is very high. And I also having a difficulties in control their power. And another group will be those are really engaged in the devices, means the digital devices for the whole days. And I also having a difficulties in controlling their short-sightedness because their power keep increasing. So it's like, I agree with Dr. Gerard. Yeah, discipline and moderation is very important. As a parents, we need to guide our children because they are still very young. And we just need to set a good model, like what you say, Pat, is really important to set a good model in front of our children and to discipline them.
Right, thank you. Thank you to all three of our speakers. We have a lot of questions that are very interesting, and we shall open our Q&A session now. And let's see, we have a question here from Jasmine, and she's asking, I suppose this is directed towards Dr. Gerard. Will online learning result in other skills being underdeveloped? For example, communication, empathy, EQ. And how can a parent assist the teacher if the child is not very responsive to online learning?
Let me first say, again, online learning is the tools that we use for online learning are just tools. Yeah? They are not an end in itself. That's not the only means by which we communicate to one another. Right? And if that was the only way since the child is born, then obviously there would be deficits, yeah, in terms of our ability to really be able to identify certain cues, interpersonal cues that will help us with developing the high ability to communicate well, etc. But if I were just to use the model of EQ, yeah, the Goldman model, Daryl Goldman model, there are 5 different aspects of that model, 5 different dimensions. And 2 of the key dimensions in EQ is the ability to recognize emotions as they are surfacing in other people and in myself, and to be aware of those 2 things, and to be able to communicate what is happening to me and to other people. That's the basis of empathic understanding. So among other things that I do, I'm a counseling psychologist by profession. So my PhD was in counseling psychology. Yeah? And in all the years that I've spent chatting with people in the context of my profession, one thing you realize is that the ability to empathize comes very much from the families you come from, that upbringing, the relationships that were formed in the family, the ability to communicate emotions. All of that is very much the family dynamics. Online learning doesn't take away that in any way, shape, or form, right? And therefore, because of the pandemic, one of the things that one of my centers in my faculty has done, and we provide professional counseling to a lot of people. Because of this, since we can't have face-to-face counseling, we had to go online counseling. Doctors also had to go in Singapore, do online consultations, right? And to be able to do that, yes, you know, it does take up a lot more of our energies, because now you really have to see all the different cues. Some things you can't see in the extremities, because if you only see from the chest up, you won't be able to see what's happening in their fingers. But at least in the facial area itself, you'll be able to get certain cues that will give you a sense of what people are feeling, yeah, and then to be able to then communicate that accordingly and appropriately. That is the foundations and the fundamentals. So if we are able to do that, even when online, it just simply means that it does not in any way diminish our ability, because if the foundations for empathy is already there in our everyday relationships, not online, but offline, everyday interactions with our family members, that would be the basis. Now, the second question,
how can
what happens if my child is unresponsive, isn't it, to learning?
Online learning.
To online learning. If the child is unresponsive to any kind of learning, whether online or on-site, okay, the first thing I would do is I will speak to the teacher. What's happening? Because the unresponsiveness is just a symptom of what's going on. There's something in the environment that is not stimulating the child. So could it be that there might be something happening to the child? Could that be something that is been undiagnosed? Is the child suffering from some special educational needs? Or is there something in terms of the way the lesson is being delivered that is not engaging at all? Is the content that has been delivered too high a level, and the child doesn't have the foundations, therefore, to cope, doesn't understand the language that is being used? There's so many different possibilities as to why children are unresponsive. And therefore, if I, as a teacher, am made aware of this because the parent is sitting with the child, then obviously we can talk. We can assess the child to find out what exactly is the reason for that unresponsiveness. So talk to the teacher.
Good point. Yes. Yeah, we need to get to the bottom of things. The next question comes from Li Tian. I guess this is probably directed to Jern. My son, daughter, they're no longer small. He does not want to read. He prefers playing computer games. And I guess the parent wants to motivate him to read. And how do I motivate him to read?
Well, I think that's probably a question asked by more than 90% of all parents nowadays. Yeah, because screens, movies, TVs, computer games, handphones, they're built to hold people's attention, right? And so the question then is, how do you break that particular attention? So sometimes you have to be a little bit sneaky about it, right? I mean, obviously there is I'm going to take the device away from you and you're going to say, this is your maximum amount of time. There's a discipline element. Let me not deal with that part, because I think that's something that is already being done. The one thing that I would like to say is, if your son is playing a particular computer game, etc., remember that there's two things. Number one, they're doing that simply because every time they win a particular level or whatever, they get a sort of like an injection of a big rush of happiness, etc., that comes from it. There are chemicals that do that to the mind. That's why they get addicted to it. The other thing is simply because they're engrossed in being in that world that they are in. If they're playing some a big strategy game or some shoot 'em up game, etc. And the one thing that you want to focus on nowadays is that in all of these games nowadays, there's a lot of tie-ins. People don't just have a game, they've got games and then they've got toys related to it, physical toys. They also have books written about it. So if you're aware of it, let's just take one example, Minecraft. There are tons of Minecraft books out there, and you have children playing the game. You have children watching other people on YouTube playing the game, right? And sometimes they spend more time on YouTube watching them play the game than playing the game themselves, and then you're wondering what's going on. So the core issue is, if they have got physical games, card games, books that are attached or in a way tied into what your child is playing, try to utilize those to distract them, because then they're used to it. So it's almost a Kaizen method of little bit by little bit, you drag their attention away from it, right? And so, that might be a little bit of a practical way of dealing with that. Yep. Okay.
So true. My gosh, spot on about Minecraft. My son is so engrossed in that all the time, and I actually buy him books on it. So, okay, let's move on to the next question. This is from Miss Ain Nachwa.
Pat, if I might add to Jern's comment, I mean, it's been a long while since I was a parent of two very young kids. They're now 20 and 22 already. But when I think of the development the reading development of my two kids. I realized what made them very avid readers later on in their later childhood was because we used to enjoy telling a lot of stories. My wife used to spend a lot of time, and sometimes as she would read, I would dramatize the reading, right? So we got them into the fantasy world before they could even read, for that matter. And therefore the association of the activity with the rewards that come out of it. Basically, that's what gaming does, isn't it? People go onto games because of the rewards. And in every game that you play, there's that constant reward that will be given. So if you hit a certain limit, you will get something, and then you want to pursue further. So your serotonin levels, your dopamine levels go very high up. The feel good feeling from playing those games. Now, if parents are able to replicate the same kind of feel good when it comes to reading, and even pre-reading, pre-ability to read, to get them fascinated with fantasy, with the world of the around them as they are discovering the world, and then they can associate that interest with what is there that you have in front of you. And the reinforcement that you give when they start beginning to read, to recognize alphabets and words, etc., there's that payoff that they feel good about. That's when you slowly then get on to that. I don't know, Jern, whether that's been your experience, but I'm speaking more from the point of view of a parent for many years ago. Whether Jern's experience is something similar.
No, I think definitely that is the case. Nowadays, there is a greater competition than 20 years ago for your attention span, right? However, everything that you have said very much is spot on. Because there are so many things pulling for your attention span, I think sometimes you need to try and trick the system a little bit nowadays. Yeah? But the whole idea of world creation, of helping children develop their imagination. I mean, I saw some questions that basically say, I try and get my child to develop imagination. Should they be doing that? I think the short answer is yes, definitely so. I don't think that children are not imaginative. If you leave them to their own devices, they're extremely imaginative. And the problem sometimes is that these things get hampered because they then become passive observers of what other things are showing them in their devices. And then they decide, I don't have to be imaginative anymore. Somebody else is being imaginative for me. And so they just stop and become passive observers because, naturally you move towards laziness rather than activity. It's a natural thing sometimes, but you want to try to avoid that. And so developing imagination and creativity is fundamental and get your mind to be exercised. Definitely so, yes.
True. Yes, reading is surely exciting when we know how to make everything to be a game or a fantasy for them. Okay, we move along to the next question by Ayn. Basically, I guess this is for Dr. Vienne. Basically, how long can the kids look at the screen on a desktop and a mobile? I'm guessing, she's asking, is there a difference? Screen time on a desktop versus on a mobile device? And if the mobile device is on very dim light, is that very bad for their eyes?
Okay, if you ask me, I have the choice. I will let my children to look at a bigger screen compared to the smaller. The smaller screen means like smartphone or mobile phone. That one is actually because the smaller screen, the children need to stress their eyes and looking at the screen. So I find that if let's say they're looking at a bigger like TV or computer, then will be more ideal. And also the time for the screen time, including TV, including smartphone, including computer, all those, the recommended is not more than 2 hours per day. And especially some like more strict guidelines, they say for those children aged 2 to 5 years old, is not more than 1 hour per day actually, the screen time.
I see. Okay, so basically bigger is better. and brighter is better. Is that right?
Not necessarily brighter will be better, as long as the brightness is about half of the room brightness, then will be okay.
Okay, so that's not too glaring. Sorry, Dr. Vienne, there's another question from Xia Mei. She's asking, she noticed her sister rubbing and blinking very frequently, especially after her online classes. Is that an indication of an eye issue? And do these devices have the same impact on adult eyes as well? So, yeah. Okay.
Yes. Okay. If the children, I also noticed my son, after means the online learning, he tends to rub his eyes more frequently. And this one could be related to dry eye, or maybe they have underlying allergic eye as well. So when a patient have allergic eye, they tend to get dry eye, especially when they're exposed to the digital devices. So it's like advisable for the parents to bring the kids for the eye check, or at least they try to reduce the screen time, will be better. So mean children, actually, they are very innocent. Actually, whatever they have, they do know how to express themselves. So they will just like, through their action, through their behavior, they just let the adult know that, hey, I'm actually having a problem. So as a parents, we need to be more observant to what's going on with our children, because usually they don't tell, and they thought that it is the natural way. Everybody will see the things like same, like what they see.
Right.
Even that, yes.
Yeah. So basically, the remedy essentially is just reduce that screen time, and but right away, is there something that the parent could do? I can't remember clearly who taught me this, but someone was saying, if you just rub your hands, warm it up, and just kind of gently rest your eyes, that may help a little bit.
Yes.
In a very short time.
What the parents can do is, let's say, if you have no choice, like we say online learning, they need to expose to the long hours of learning, like what Dr. Gerard's teacher usually do. So they can rest for a while, after 20 minutes, they rest for a while, or they try to look far. Because for children, the concentration, the span will be very short only. So usually you know that even the online learning also very fast. They were looking here, looking there already. They're not really concentrate on the online teaching. This is what I observed for my son. My son is only 6 years old. So he's also like, I know it's a bit difficult to discipline him. So what we can do is, as a parents, is ask them to remind them, set the alarm, after 20 minutes, you just rest for a while. I find that setting an alarm is very good point. When the alarm is like sound already, then they know, oh, this is time that they should rest for a while. And what you say just now is a good idea also, Pat. But usually this is what we call as a warm compression. In adult also, they tend to get the digital eye strain. My patient told me, because the MCO, long hours of exposed to screen time, she also having a tired eye and dry eye. What she do is she just put the warm compression, the warm towel, 15 minutes only. She find that it's really relief of the eye. So I find that if, let's say, you want to do that, warm towel, then warm compression actually can ease the tired eyes after long hours of digital strain.
That's a quick home remedy. Okay,
yes.
We have time only for a last question now, unfortunately. Dr. Gerard, I guess you would be best suited to answer this one. Cor is asking, is it possible to have a lecture conducted by an excellent world-class lecturer and all students can benefit from this, rather than having so many lecturers? This would also be cost efficient in the long term. So do you have some comments on that?
Well, absolutely. First of all, my CEO would love this question. Anything to cut down the number of lecturers that are in the university. But you're absolutely right. The reality, however, is this. Yeah. So a couple of things. One, we don't have in any program that we run in the university. You just don't have, or even in a school for that matter, you just don't have one teacher that is an expert in every area, area of that particular discipline. So for psychology, for example, you probably have about 60 different courses that you might go through over a 3-year period. And at most, one lecturer might be able to be a good and a master in maybe 5 or 6 different courses. And that's the reason why you have all of this, so many courses. And the reason why you also have so many courses is because the requirements of that discipline and the standards that are set by the profession itself requires you to have this breadth of courses. Having said that, however, in 21st century education, and when we see how the world is evolving and the needs of industry at this point in time, there is a trend that seems to be happening, or thinking that seems to be conversations that are going on now, where people say, you don't need to finish to have a degree in this or that, because these days it's all about a multidisciplinary base that you need to have, right? So what if I wanted to learn something about data analytics, I would just do a course in data analytics from HELP, then maybe do something else from Stanford University, then do something else from Hong Kong University, do a course in different universities, learn from different people, put it together, because if this is a field I'm interested in, then I just need the base, and everything else, the critical ability that I have and the creative ability and innovative ability that I have, that's all I need to be able to work in the future. Because the workplace doesn't require you to have that piece of paper anymore, but you must have that base plus. And you don't necessarily need to go through a whole lot of courses that you will never use again for the rest of your life, right? And so that's the evolution of education, and it's already happening. We talk about even something what we call micro-credentialing, where I might just do part of a course and part of a course somewhere else, and just do a collection of some of these different courses, and that then makes up enough credits for one course, a 3-unit course. And so there are so many different variations. So Core is right, currently there's some movement already there, and then if learning moves in this way in the future, this is certainly a possibility.
Yep, certainly times are exciting, although some may say it's scary, but let's put a positive spin on our lives. So we have to wrap up our session tonight because time is running out. If I may just have just one very important thing that we must remember from each one of you, what would it be? And I'll start with Jern. What is this one really important take home that we ought to remember?
In my case, I'd say when you read, you exercise your imagination, and that improves creativity and it helps you develop a number of life skills. So reading is a very, very good habit to develop. It's never too late to start, and you are never alone with a book, right? In these times of the MCO, etc., when sometimes, we're stuck in a place and we can't move on, then, let your mind escape.
You remind me of Albert Einstein, or rather his quote that says, imagination is more important than knowledge. Dr. Gerard, a very important line from you.
It's not so much what you learn, but how you learn. What you learn will become obsolete very, very fast. But if you know how to master the process of learning, you will be a learner for a lifetime.
That's very true. Thank you. Yes, and your classroom is literally more than just your 4 walls around you, right?
Absolutely.
The world is your
Absolutely.
classroom.
Absolutely.
And pursue your interests relentlessly. From Dr. Vienne?
I think moderation is very important life skill that we need to implant inside our children. So they need to discipline on reading and also on the online learning. They live in this era. They cannot be denied of online learning, and they need to learn. They need to read to learn. So try to limit their time of reading. Have a frequent break. If let's say you want to read for 2 hours, or you want to be online learning for 2 hours, just make a frequent break within these 2 hours. I think that will be guaranteed better eye health. And also, last but not least, don't forget outdoor activities will be the good remedies of all these problems.
Totally agree with you. I mean, as a mom who loves gardening, I literally have to force my students and my kids to go out very often and, you know, just stare at some flower or some plants or water the garden. Yes, thank you. So with this, I say a big thank you to all three of you speakers. A big thank you to all of you who are here with us throughout this time. And a huge thank you to VISTA Eye Specialists, of course, together with Star Media Group for organizing this webinar for us. And so I say good night. And just a quick reminder, if any of you would like to have the slides that we have shown tonight, please just click on the QR code later on, okay? Don't worry, you have that all at your fingertips. And a quick congratulations to all the first 200 registrants who managed to get that beautiful sunset story book. What else? And a little reminder, if you would please help to fill in the questionnaire. There's a poll at the end. You could help us to improve our webinars in future. So yes, there's a poll there that you could just help us. Okay, just like 3-4 questions, really quick. And that's all the time we have tonight. So thank you once again. It was such a pleasure to have you all with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you and good night. Take care.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.